Arrays, Part 1, the basics. An array is basically an object that can hold multiple values. You've already seen variables. The variable can hold a single value. An array is like a variable, but it can hold multiple values, like 1, 2, and 3, where a variable can only hold one value. In our case, one number, like 10, 5. If it's an int or a float, let's say it's a string can hold, let's say, one string. An array can hold multiple values. But it's different than a variable. Let's see what they say in the docs about arrays, in the Java documentation. An array is a container object that holds a fixed number of values of a single type. The length of an array is established when the array is created. After creation, its length is fixed. Basically, they say the same thing as I said. It's an object that can hold multiple values of a single type, like int. Let's say it can hold 3 ints. It can't hold one int, one string, etc., etc. It must be of the same value. And about the length is established when it's created, and it's fixed. Yeah, when you create it, you say this is an array with 5 positions, or an array with 1,000 positions, and you can't change this. You can create another array and specify a different size and put your old array inside of it. But once you create an array, its size cannot be changed. Well, speaking about it is nice, but to really understand it, you need to see it. Let's use an int array as an example. Int. Now, to tell Java it's an array, we need the rectangular brackets, the square brackets. Now Java knows this is an array. Now we need to give the array a name. Let's call it A. And now we need to initialize it. We will put curly brackets. This is called in this case, it's not like in the if where the curly brackets is at the execute. The curly brackets here are called the initializer. Let's give it some multiple values. 1, 2, and 3. Now A holds 3 values. 1, 2, and 3. So how do we use this? How do we manipulate these values? Let's print one of them using the s.o. So we call A, but it won't print anything. Well, let's see what it prints. It will print an object or something. It won't print any value. You see? This is what it's called a reference. As well, Java doesn't use references and pointers, but other programming languages does. But this is not the value of the array. It's the reference of the array in the memory. To access one of the array's values, we will need to use again square brackets and put the index of the value we want. In programming, we start to count from 0. So if here we have 3 elements, the index of the first one will be 0, the second one will be 1, and the third one will be 2. Remember, we start counting from 0. So if we want 1, we will have to put 0, and you'll get the value of 1. Well, let's change it, let's say to 12. Now you will see it will be 12. Now we want 2. So we'll have to change the index inside the curly brackets to 1. We get 2, which is this value. Let's make it easier to distinguish, I turned it to 22, and if we write 3, we will get an error. Array out of bounds. Array index out of bounds exception 3. Because it doesn't have an index of 3, the maximum, well, it has 3 indexes, 0, 1, and 2. The third one is 2, not 3. If we had 4 values, like something like this, then it would be okay, because its index, the index of the fourth one is 3. Remember, we start counting from 0. So in our case, I'll just need to change it to 2 to access 33, the third value. Okay, in a lot of cases, you won't create an array like this with the initialized value. You will just create an array. So let me show you how to do that. We will create an array of ints again. We will call it B, and we will initialize it using the keyword new, the name of our data type int, and the rectangular brackets, square brackets, and inside of them we will put the size of our array. We want again an array with three places we can put values inside it, with 3 indexes. So we will write 2. Remember, we start in this case we start counting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3 positions, from 0 to 2. So now what do we do with this? How do we use it? We will call the index inside the B array and assign to it a new value. We'll write B, square brackets, and write 0. We want to assign the first value, the value of, let's say, 3. And now we will do the same for the other indexes in the array, 1 and 2. So the second value in the array will be 4, and then the third one will be 5. So this is very similar to this, but you will more often run into this case as it's more dynamic. Well, both are actually dynamic in the same way, but in most cases you'll see people initialize an empty array and then manipulate it with loops or other stuff. Maybe data from a database or user input or something else. You will see when we create practical examples. In this lesson I just want to show you the basic syntax of arrays. So let's output the first value of the B array, s.o b, and let's call the first index 0 index. We will get 3 here. The second output will be 3. 30. Let's see what happened here. Exception in thread main. Array index out of bounds, exception 2. In line 16. Oh, so I guess we have to declare it has 3 positions from 0 to 2. My bad. So when you declare the array, you need to give it the actual number of values it will hold. In our case it's 3. So now it will be okay. Now this value is no longer out of the array bounds. You see, when you create an array, you tell the computer, I want from this memory to this memory, this is the array, from this point in the memory to this point of the memory. Here I tell it I want 3 places in the memory, 3 values. As I said, Java doesn't actually have a way to manipulate pointers of references directly, but an arrays is one way to do this. So we must declare how many places in the memory we allocate to this array. And as it said in the documentation, it's fixed. The length is fixed after the array is created. So you must specify the length of the array when you create it. And that would be its length. So as you can see, it outputted 3. Let's make it more visible. Let's give it 1 at the start. So 33 from this output, from the A array, and 13 from the B array. Now let's output the second index. The 14 will change it to 1. And it's 14, and etc. for the third value. And now let's create another array, a string array. I want to show you how to create an array with a different data type, not just with ints. A string array with 2 values. String and then we will give it the square brackets, and let's call it S, and let's write new string, and we want it to have 2 values. It will hold 2 strings. The first string will be S, the first string in the S array will be foo. So in the index 0, in the first position of the S array, we have the value foo, and let's assign the second one, which is 1. If you remember, we count from 0. We start counting from 0 in arrays, and in a lot of other syntax related to programming, we start counting from 0 actually, not from 1. So we have 2 positions, so they are 0 and 1. So foo bar. Now let's output the second position in the S array, S, and we will use the 1 index because it's the index representing the second position, and you will see bar is outputted. You can do this for doubles and any other data type there is. You can create an array for it using first you must declare the data type, then you put the square brackets so the Java compiler will know we want to create an array, that this is an array. You give the name of the array, the same as you do with variables, and then you write equals, a sign, and then you declare new, the keyword new, and again you write the data type, and inside the rectangular brackets this time you write the number of positions, the number of data of the same type you want to be in the array. Let's say in this case 2, but you can also write any other number. Let's say you want 10 positions, so you'll write 10. And again, arrays can hold only the data type that is declared, that you declared. Let's say if it's a string array, it can only hold strings. Let's say we write 1.5. This will return an error. Type mismatch, cannot convert from double to string. This is the error. But when I put a string, it's okay. And that's it for now. This is basically how you create an array. You can create it with an initializer, curly brackets, or you can create it with new keywords and declare how many positions you want the array to have. And I also showed you how to assign value or to update the value of a position in the array and how to output it and use it. So this is the very basics of how to use and manipulate arrays. And that's it for this lesson.